Hello, Jean-Marc. You have been the CEO of STmicroelectronics for quite some time now. I would like to ask you some questions about semiconductors, about automotive, and about what you think will be the future in this industry. Maybe to start with some questions in the beginning on semiconductor industry in general. Since the COVID crisis and the shortage questions, semiconductors have become a high priority for the automotive industry. Can you tell us how you overcame this problem and made investments in order to ensure enough production to meet your clients' expectations?
I guess there is two points I would like to highlight. First of all, integrated design and manufacturer company like us, owning our plants, we drive our investment for capacity, whatever as a final customer, through a process which is pretty well known, called a sales and operating plan for 3 years, that we update every 2 months. Well, this is something mandatory because you know that semiconductor is a cycling market, and you need to update very frequently, your 3 years plan in order to be sure that you capture all the dynamic. Well, then there is a investment that are more, let's say, mid-long term, about the manufacturing footprint itself, or major change in the manufacturing. Well, this is driving by our strategy. And so today, what ST is doing, and generally speaking, the semiconductor industry, but as far as ST is concerned now, it's a major wafer size conversion for silicon. So moving to, let's say, 8-inch to 12-inch for analog and power silicon technologies, and a major conversion from 6-inch to 8-inch for silicon carbide. And this is a mandatory milestone in order to create the opportunity later on to expand our capacity with some economical payback. So the answer is yes. Well, at the end, however, the best way to secure the supply between the customer and the vendor is to exchange information about the forecast, about the flexibilities they want to have to provide frame order, strategic inventory. Well, this is something that we improve a lot, I believe, between car makers and semiconductor company on one side, but as well with tier one on the other side.
So you have a certain dependency on automotive market today. How much is this dependency? How high is the degree of dependency? And what are your views on topics such as, for example, software-defined vehicle, autonomous driving, and artificial intelligence?
If you may, I will classify it not a dependency, I will classify it an opportunity. So, historically, since let's say the past 3-4 years, automotive segment was about 40% for ST of our total revenue. Now, moving forward, it will represent more in the range of about 35%. Why? Because simply we are growing faster in infrastructure for AI factories. And you know that the automotive market from volume of car produced is pretty stable since few years. And regionally, it is decreasing in many regions in the world and increasing a lot in China. So now I believe that it's 35% for ST.
To just mention China, we have seen that there are a lot of cars now on the roads coming from China, BYD, etc. I just drove one during my vacation. Quite impressive cars. How do you see the competition in electronics? Innovation is key for these newcomers. They have a lot of things inside the cars. Do you think that conventional OEMs should react faster, increase the speed of the technical developments?
It's clear that the main factor between Chinese OEM and European one, I have to say, is the speed of implementation of innovation and the capability to go very fast, clearly. And that the reason why ST is pushing a strategy to be close to our customer from European base, of course. This has not changed, but for Chinese as well. So that's the reason why we have a policy called China for China, not because we want to produce absolutely in China for a cost perspective, but because we want to be close the innovation and we want to be close the speed of innovation in order that we drive our own innovation at the same speed. So I feel that the European industry need to have a similar approach. So the tier one or tier two like ST, we must not be afraid to compete in China, and we must be present in China to occupy this market, to address this market. But again, in order to feel the same practices and the same speed of innovation. For me, this is the main difference. Well, then of course, about electrification, I have simply to give a testimony. Okay, they are really preparing the electrification since many years. But first, building infrastructure of power supply, building infrastructure of charging, and then moving fast on car. But sometimes I feel that in Europe, we have done the reverse. So we first build car, then we think about infrastructure, and then we think about power supply. So this is also something we have to change.
Do you think that in Europe we are able to catch up the train, that we are able to work enough together vertically between OEMs, tier ones, and semiconductor suppliers as they do in Asia?
I am absolutely convinced about it. As far as we will cooperate among ourselves with let's say the same spirit. It is clear that between a vendor and supplier there is always, okay, but first of all the question of price, okay, the question of quality, and so on and so forth. But more important is we must be convinced that the ecosystem is important.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that in Europe, we have to protect the ecosystem around the automotive and push our team to continuously innovate, discussing with R&D to R&D, design to design, supply chain to supply chain, in order, okay, to go fast. Of course, okay, at the end, you have to deliver a product at quality and with a good price. But sometimes this ecosystem, let's say, view is not completely shared in the value chain, and there are still some behavior in Europe, I have to say, master-slave kind of relation. And this, of course, is a plan to fail.
So do you think that the discussions that are ongoing at the moment around a new CHIPS Act, the CHIPS Act 2, could be driven in that direction? Could that be a good answer to what you just said, this vertical integration? Are we already in this step that we have not only semiconductor industry talking about CHIPS Act, but also the people of the ecosystem?
The CHIPS Act is a must-do in order at least to give a chance of the value chain and the one of semiconductor to compete with the same economical advantage that there is in the world, in America, in China, in Japan, in Taiwan, in South Korea. So this is a great decision from the European Union after the CHIPS Act number 1 to go to the CHIPS Act number 2. Well, anyway, what is important is to make choice about where we want to compete, because again, to give state aid or grants to semiconductor is good, but as far as you can compete. And clearly in Europe, there is a semiconductor that we can compete, power, analog, sensors, microcontroller, some microprocessor for software-defined vehicle, but we cannot compete on GPU, on high bandwidth memory, on DDR RAM memory. So this we cannot compete. So we have to be convinced that we can continue to compete on what matters. And again, the mainstream technology are really important in Europe, and make some strategic alliance for the rest. And the CHIPS Act 2 will enable the semiconductor European-based company to compete with the same weapons.
There are many new areas, like, for example, also the artificial intelligence. You just mentioned that this is taking more speed at the moment and a little bit replacing the percentages of the turnover ST from automotive to AI. Can you say something about that? We heard about the deal with Amazon Web Services. Is there something that you can tell us? What is it that you are working on? Is it more on the power supply or infrastructure, or on the little things around the GPUs?
Basically, you have 3 or 4 big mainstream in AI infrastructure. You have what we call the network flows. So it means it is the communication inside the rack. It is a communication rack to rack, and it is communication outside the rack. Well, I have to say that here there is a trend that already done partially and will accelerate, to move from a copper cable for communication to optical cable. Where of course there is some silicon photonics technology or other one that are key. And ST has a right position here. So this is one part of the substance of the deal with AWS. But then there is another big mainstream. It is the one we call the power flow. Because to make a long story simple again, you have to move from 20,000 volt, which is a voltage supplied by the grid, to 1 volt at the processor level, but providing 1,000 amps. So it is clear that between 20,000 volt and 1 volt at 1,000 amps, you have different power stage that you need to control, and offering a very strong reliability and stability of the current and the voltage at the processor level. Well, this is a place where ST is playing more and more, competing with Infineon or ON Semiconductor or MPS. Well, this is the second. Well, then the third mainstream is the thermal flow. So the infrastructure that are cooling this infrastructure, because at 1,000 amps, I guess you can imagine that the heating control is very important. But here is a traditional way of industrial infrastructure where ST is playing. Where ST is not playing, it is in the compute flow and in the memory storage flow. We are competing in the hard disk drive because we provide some analog, but for sure we don't provide memory and processors.
To come to our conference back again, we are here in a motorsports arena, and we are talking about fast driving cars, where some people think about using what is today in the fast driving car tomorrow in series production. Are you involved as ST in such racing cars, in Formula E, Formula One, or rally driving?
Yes, of course, and for us it's clearly a real opportunity to cooperate with either car maker or engineering company on the system enabling this racing car. Why? But simply because it's a matter of let's say the process window where the system, electronic system, are working and enabling a racing car are let's say really different than the usual one. And of course, okay, it is driving the innovation. The physical, let's say, burn-in, the thermal burn-in, the performance and the reliability you ask to your component are really different. But it is driving the innovation, okay, from the top. And this we like. And this I like personally. And here, what we are looking is not for volume, is not for revenue. What we are looking is for intangible payback of engineering know-how. So that's the reason why we love to work, okay, with Ferrari, McLaren, okay, let's say Mercedes, okay, all the big guys that are enabling this fantastic machine.
Jean-Marc, thank you very much for these words, this information to us. We hope to see you soon, maybe racing yourself in a car.
Yeah, you have to love car.
Exactly.
And this is what I want to say. ST is a company where many people, including of course the management and the CEO, we love car. And personally, I have a whole car that I am super proud about. Is a 964 RS, which is a fantastic car from Porsche.
Great.
See you soon.